All right, let's dive into a story about one of the most important, but maybe one of the most overlooked battles in all of ancient history. And look, this isn't just about who won and who lost. This is really the story of how a single desperate conflict ended up forging the very identity of a nation.
So this description actually comes to us from the Rigvedic, which is this incredible collection of ancient texts, and it's our main source for what went down. I mean, just try to picture it for a second. The whole ground is shaking from horses and chariots. The air is thick with the smell of rain, mud, and, well, fear. The sky is getting dark. This isn't just some little skirmish. This is the stage for an ancient Armageddon.
And right at the center of this storm, you've got one man, King Sudas of the Bharata tribe. And his situation is, well, it's about as bad as it gets. He's totally surrounded, completely outgunned, and his escape route is cut off. A massive coalition of 10, that's right, 10 rival kings has him pinned against a flooding river, and they are ready to literally wipe his people off the face of the earth.
Okay, so to really get how things got this desperate, we need to hit rewind for a second and step back into the world of the Rigvedic era. What was the political climate really like that led to such a massive all-or-nothing showdown? You have to understand, this was not a time of big, stable empires. The Rigveda paints a picture of the whole subcontinent as this patchwork of different tribes, or janas, that were in a constant state of flux. And they were fighting over the things you needed to survive and get wealthy: good land, cattle, and, of course, access to water from the rivers. It was a world pretty much defined by constant conflict. And into this chaotic world step the Bharatas. Under King Sudas, they were really good at what they did. They were expanding, getting more powerful, becoming a real force to be reckoned with. But here's the thing about success. It often makes other people nervous. A kind of creeping sense of dread started to spread among their neighbors. And that fear sparked something of a diplomatic revolution. 10 rival tribes who normally wouldn't agree on anything put all their differences aside for one single goal: to crush the Bharatas once and for all. Now, these 10 kings weren't just showing up and hoping for the best. They weren't just relying on their massive numbers. No, they had a very specific and what they thought was a foolproof military plan, designed for nothing less than total annihilation. And they were very confident it was going to work.
So their grand strategy was something called a double envelopment, or a pincer movement. It's a classic military tactic that's been used for literally thousands of years. The plan was pretty simple, actually. Use their huge numbers to squeeze the Bharatas from both sides, and use that raging Ravi River as a natural wall to make sure there was absolutely no escape. It was a textbook move, all about the shock and awe of their chariot charge.
And this slide just perfectly shows how dire the situation really was for Sudas. I mean, look at this tale of the tape. You've got 10 kings versus 1, a massive army against a force that's completely cut off. On paper, this should have been a slaughter, a quick, brutal victory for the coalition. All the odds, and I mean all of them, were stacked against King Sudas. But, and this is a huge but, the coalition made one critical, fatal mistake. They completely underestimated their opponent, because while he was facing certain death, King Sudas came up with this brilliant, incredibly daring counterplan that would turn the coalition's greatest advantage, that river, into his own most powerful weapon.
And this is the key. It's all about mindset. Where his enemies saw a trap, Sudas, with his incredible strategic foresight, saw an opportunity. He realized he could use that river not as a wall to get pinned against, but as a dynamic, active defense network. He was going to weaponize the terrain itself. So here's exactly how the trap was sprung. The coalition's heavy chariots start their big charge right into the river. But immediately, their whole momentum just dies. They get bogged down in thick mud, the water is rising, and suddenly their number one weapon, the chariot, is basically useless. And at that exact moment of chaos, Sudas gives the order. His men breach an embankment upstream and unleash a devastating wall of water right on top of his enemies. Can you even imagine the shock? 1 minute, you're charging forward, convinced you're about to win a glorious victory. The next, a wall of ice-cold water just smashes into you, sweeps you off your feet, and turns your epic charge into a desperate, chaotic scramble just to stay alive.
The effect was just devastating. The coalition's entire battle plan completely fell apart in a matter of seconds. All their coordination? Gone. They were now stuck in the mud, totally trapped in what modern military strategists would call a pre-designated killing zone. It was perfect. Now the disciplined Bharata archers could just stand on the banks and pick them apart one by one.
And what's so incredible is how Sudas' tactics from thousands of years ago perfectly mirror concepts we study in modern warfare today. Weaponizing the terrain, that's a core concept. Disrupting the enemy's logistics and mobility by breaching the embankment, genius. And using the river to funnel them into that perfect killing zone, I mean, this is timeless strategic thinking on display.
So, the battle was over. The fighting stopped. But its consequences, wow. They would ripple out through history for thousands of years, forging a legacy in the very same water that won them the victory in the first place.
The result was absolute. The 10 kings were completely and utterly defeated. Their armies were broken, beaten, and bloody. And that myth of their invincibility, it was shattered for good. This wasn't just a military loss for them, it was a total political collapse that created a massive power vacuum and changed the map of northern India forever.
And this, right here, is the ultimate legacy of that one battle. This incredible victory allowed the Bharatas to consolidate their power, to bring other tribes into their fold, and to become the dominant ruling force in the region. Their influence, both culturally and politically, became so huge that centuries and centuries later, their own tribal name, Bharata, was chosen as an official name for the modern nation of India itself. Think about that, a direct line from one desperate battle on a riverbank to a modern national identity. It just leaves you with this really powerful question, doesn't it? This story wasn't about the biggest army winning. It was about how one leader, with brilliant strategy and foresight, overcame what looked like impossible odds. It really makes you wonder, how often is history really shaped not by brute strength, but by pure strategy?